Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Claudia Monticelli, the host of this podcast, Let's Talk Soul. Over the years, after having interviewed so many people on so many different topics, I realized that what interested my audience wasn't really the individual topics per se, but was how it impacted them, how it touched their soul. So I'll invite you all to lay back, put your feet up, and if you like what you hear, leave a review, 5-star review. I'd appreciate that. So just enjoy your listening. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Claudia Monticelli, the guest of this podcast called Let's Talk Soul. Well, before I press the record button, I was with my guest, who I will introduce you to right now, and we were laughing so hard. So we forced ourselves to turn on the record button. Here we are. I told him I was going to make mincemeat of him, but I will be kind. I will be kind. Today I'm with Ken W. Stone. Ken, say hello to our audience.
It's wonderful to be with you, Claudia, and hello, audience.
Good. Now zip it.
Now zip it.
He's talking to us from Colorado. And who is he? Well, like I said, I'm gonna make mincemeat of him. All right, now, you all know that before I have my guests on, I give them questionnaires, and it's a kind of funny at times, but it's personal. And so they fill it out and they tell me what they want to talk about and their, strengths and weaknesses and, some topics. Well, they also give me a suggestion to how to introduce them. And this is a secret between you and me. Forget, as soon as you finish this episode, just forget what I said. Now, who's Ken? Ken W. Stone is the Soul Archaeologist. Now, that's quite interesting. And I imagine that you gave yourself this nickname?
I did not.
Oh, I can't wait to find out who.
Well, I hate to spoil your fun, Claudia, but I didn't give myself that name.
That's okay. I'll get you in a couple of sentences.
We're still going to get to the mincemeat, aren't we?
Okay. It's going to be a long episode. Oh, please. Come on. Let's get back.
Sorry.
Serious.
I'll pull it together.
Yes. You were saying someone gave you that nickname or...
Yeah.
And you don't want to tell us who it is?
Oh, I'm happy to tell you. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't get that you wanted me to tell you the story.
Oh, of course. Why would I talk about it? Wake up, Ken. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, listen.
I'm crying.
Back at the beginning. Yeah, I'll be crying here in a moment too. Back at the beginning, which wasn't that many years ago, probably in 2008 or 2009 is when this happened. And
what
this
happened?
Is the naming that you're asking me to tell you about.
Okay.
And
I thought I missed something.
This friend of mine was sitting with me. I think we were together in person, and her name is Rhonda Renee, and she has all sorts of intuitive gifts. And I had done session work for her, so she had experienced whatever the heck it is that divinity works through me, however that is, whatever that is. And on this particular day, she said, "I want you to just start talking about what you do." And I said, "You already know what I do. Why would I tell you something you already know?" And she said, I know, but just start talking to me. And I said, maybe it was in 2010. I don't want to mistel the story. And
it was really
and I
30
said, well,
years ago.
Whatever it was. I said, listen, I think one of the things that God does through me is help people uncover the buried treasure of divine presence that's already inside every single human being. And she said, "You're the soul archaeologist." And that was
now
it.
that makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. And I
Yeah.
loved that you gave her credit for that on my show.
Yes,
I love
absolutely.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
Now, we will try to get through this because not only is he considered the soul archaeologist, he is a spiritual teacher, messenger, and healer. Now, I will hit you with the healing after about 15 minutes, after I get you talking. All right? You're going to write that down.
Let's see if you hold to your word here, Claudia.
He is the founder of the Resonance Experiment and author of the forthcoming book, Resonance, The Path of Spiritual Mastery. Now, the Resonance Experiment. I am in Netflix watching this. Now, what is it?
Well, this is another conversation I was having with a friend. I was trying to figure out, I had done an event. I like to do free events, right? So
yeah,
the reason I like to do free events is that the barrier of entry for the stuff that God does through me is very high. Yeah. Because when I try to talk about it, people say, this sounds like a bunch of hoobity ha. They just think you're just making this up.
Is the word, I think.
There you go. But not just woo-woo. It's off the far end of the woo-woo scale. And at least that's the feedback I get from people. And so often...
Oh, you're kidding.
No, I'm not.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I understand. I can't talk to everyone about this stuff. No, I can't.
Yeah. So then, okay, so I'm getting this feedback early on, right? People are saying, this is too weird for words, or I'm having the deepest spiritual experience, or whatever. People are giving me all this spontaneous feedback. And so anyway, for a number of years, I did an event that I called 4 Days of Healing. And I would do it over the last 4 days of the year. And I offered it as a free event and blah, blah, blah. And it was great. And it sort of came to its conclusion for reasons we can discuss if they're of interest to you and your audience.
Was this in person or online?
No, it was an online. It's a virtual event. Okay. And so, of course, people are tuning in from all over the world and so on. And then I was chatting with a friend of mine, and he was saying, I think maybe you should be doing a new kind of event. And I said, okay, that's really interesting. And, there's a bunch of in between the parentheses, there's a big, long conversation. But one of the things that I had realized on maybe in the prior year to when we were having this conversation, I had gone to some friends of mine to a retreat that they held. They'd invited me to come as a participant. And on that retreat, I was trying to figure out what is the through line of my life. Because it's sort of like I lived one life.
What do you mean by through line?
Like, what is the common theme here? What is the thing?
I understand.
Because it seemed like I lived one life for the first part of my life and then something totally different for the second part. Yeah. And I was trying to figure out, there must be some common theme. And so one of the things about my background is that I used to play jazz trombone. And I was actually accepted to Berklee School of Music out in Boston, but never attended. And had I gone, I would have gone into their music production and engineering program to be a sound engineer, but I actually became a sound engineer anyway. And when I was doing sound, I wouldn't have described it that time because I wasn't conscious in this way, but looking back on it, I would say it was a very spiritual experience for me to do sound. It was an experience of something that was just entirely intuitive for me. It just happened.
But wait, Ron. Ken Stone. I came out with Ron.
You don't know who Ron is? One of my guides, apparently. I just learned a guide name.
Wait, before I forget. Okay. What's interesting is that you said you implied that it just happened. Yeah. The music and the sound. Yes. I don't believe that. I believe that the seeds are I'm only talking about sound, not sight.
Yeah.
For sound you come out of the
Yeah. Yeah.
womb, and
I
you
agree.
have your sound. Your
I
ears
agree.
hear what they
Yeah.
can hear,
I
and that
agree.
stays with you unless
Yeah.
there's illness, a serious
Yeah. Yeah.
illness, or
Yeah. Yeah.
crazy, that woo woo stuff, negative
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah. 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 Well,
And
maybe a more accurate way to say it is that I didn't understand. I hadn't been trained as a sound engineer, and when
uh-huh.
I got behind a mixing console to do the
Yeah,
sound,
yeah.
it happened. I just sort of knew
Yes.
what to do,
Yes.
right?
And that doesn't
And
bode well for institutionalized education, does it?
no, it doesn't. It doesn't at all.
I
But
know.
it didn't really bode very well for my career either, because I went to work for a guy who was very agitated by the fact that I couldn't describe why I was doing what I was doing. But anyway, that's a separate story. So anyway, I was on this retreat and I started realizing, okay, in sound, I was having an experience of resonance, and I could
Hmm.
tell when the mix was in resonance because something happened in my
Yeah.
body.
Hmm.
And then the audience would go nuts because it sounded amazing. And it didn't really matter the kind of music. It could be
Yeah,
a
of course.
symphony that I
Hmm.
was mixing or whatever, it didn't matter. And I started realizing, oh my goodness, this experience, this spiritual thing, whatever it is that God does through me, this also is an experience of resonance. We could call it divine
In
resonance.
of course, yeah, of course. I
Yeah.
agree. I
And
agree.
and actually, one of the things that I'm particularly interested in is that the physical, the visceral
Mm.
experience of divine presence. And so that was what gave birth to the resonance
You know,
experiment, was that I would
you're
do this experiment with
surprising
people.
me. You're
Yeah.
surprising me because
Yeah.
you're speaking about it and as if you were incredulous yourself. And seems so natural to me. Of course. Of
Yeah.
course. It
Well,
is divine. Wake up.
I mean, I know it is divine, right? But
Yeah.
I'm also, as I'm sharing this story with you, I'm re-experiencing my life in a way to have an embodied experience of the story. Yeah, embodied divine resonance.
Go ahead. You've had the floor. Again.
So with this experience of embodied divine resonance is an opportunity to viscerally encounter divine presence. And so the purpose of the resonance experiment was to do an event, which I've
Mhm.
repeated, and um, invite people to explore that visceral experience for themselves. And rather than me telling them, here's what it's going to be like,
Right.
I was just doing, whatever God does through me in session and transmission. And they were having whatever experience they were having. And then people would, comment, they'd open up their mic, they'd share, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the resonance experiment.
How long did that take? How the entire event?
Oh, you mean actually the virtual
Time.
event? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. How
it
long did
was
it last?
maybe a 3-day event. We did it
Uh-huh.
over 3 days. So people would register, and there was some pre-content.
Oh,
Like
but
I
there
was,
was a time, there was a schedule.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was like
and
a
then
conference,
it
yeah.
became like an evergreen event. So it's available for people to
Okay.
participate
Good.
anytime they want. Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Now we gave away a lot of the stuff, so you make my job difficult.
I'm making it so difficult for you.
Wait, now I'm going to go back for what he wrote to what he wrote. God expresses through Ken, this man here, in a very unique way. When people sit with him in transmission, now, comma, what do you mean by in transmission?
Well, transmission is just the best way that I know how to describe what my perception is of what's happening. And what I mean by it is it's something more than a meditation,
Mhm.
because I become aware of everyone who's participating, and I'm witnessing them energetically or
Mhm.
spiritually.
I'm trying to
Um,
think of a synonym.
Yeah, it's difficult. I'll say a session or a transmission. The reason I use the word transmission is that I differentiate between transmission and meditation.
Okay.
But
Okay.
often my
Yeah.
students don't. They'll just say, "Oh, that
Uh-huh.
was a great meditation."
Yeah,
And
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah,
my
yeah.
vernacular, I would say, "Well, that was
Mm-hmm.
a transmission," but who
Well,
cares?
I know I'm not following the right wrote here, but I have to say, while you were talking before as well,
Yeah.
it was very clear to me that
Yeah.
we're talking about love
Oh,
very
yes.
simply.
Yes.
And, it's almost as if people have trouble talking about love, even saying the word love, just as much as they have difficult talking about money to someone they don't know.
Sure.
And it's interesting. It's very, very interesting that people sort of dance around the idea. And because it's scary, maybe, do you think, Ken, that people are fearful of it?
Yeah, I
If,
think you have something there. I
yeah,
think there,
yeah.
yeah, there's this idea that I have kind of developed over the years that I think of as the core wound. I'm
Yeah,
sure it's not unique to me. In fact,
yeah.
I'm guessing that nothing I say is unique or different. How
He
could it
said
be?
it, he did admit it.
I mean, I think that's just true, right?
Yeah.
So there are only so many words to describe the ineffable. But anyway, my idea about the core wound, for sure, my core wound relates to unconditional love, a lack of
Hmm.
unconditional love. And I've hypothesized that that may be universally true. But
Yeah.
whether it is or it isn't, I can say definitively for me it
Mhm.
is. And I mean, the minute we start talking about love, you and I, or any of us on the planet, I think we are definitely treading into a very vulnerable space for many
Vulnerable.
people.
I think you're
Yeah,
right. That is the
yeah,
perfect word.
yeah.
Vulnerability. People are, quite vulnerable. It's like being on the I dance Argentine tango, and so
Oh,
when the floor is empty, they put on the music. You get invited right away, and you're the only couple on the
yeah,
dance floor for
yeah,
forever. It seems.
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know
yeah.
yeah, and that's a vulnerable place to be.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah. It can feel very
yeah,
naked, I think. And
yeah.
talking about love is, I would say, it's a form of being naked emotionally,
Yes,
spiritually,
sure, sure,
perhaps even physically, right? Because for many people, there are
sure.
so many traumas that are related to
Yeah,
what maybe for other people are a loving dynamic, but for that
yeah.
individual isn't. So,
When you say spiritually, physically, we have that word emotionally. That still
mhm.
is another. We don't talk about that
Oh
emotional.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
um, and it's interesting because there's the concept of love. Okay, we have the concept. All right, this just podcast talks about soul and what's the soul. Okay, what is that soul? And when we talk about love, there is sort of, for me, it just, spirituality is love. I don't
yeah,
have any distinction other than
yeah,
that.
yeah,
and
yeah,
and it amazes me how people discuss what they do in a way that doesn't always get the message across,
yeah,
but they cater. I think this is it. They cater to a certain um, target, a certain niche, maybe a market niche. I don't know. And it was quite. It's quite always quite interesting for me to see, um, you know, how people do the work they do, whether they're architects, whether they're, whatever, they cut stones or anything. But the way they do what they do, and they talk about it to sell it, to get you enthusiastic about it because they just love their job. Very few people can do that. Very few people are enthusiastic about what they're saying, what they're listening to, and it's so sad, so sad. You know, um, I, there, I sometimes I think, well, it could be worse. I mean, you might have to pull teeth to get something out, and that frightens me. That frightens me. But I think, here we're here. We're supposed to be speaking. We
yeah,
have to
yeah,
speak.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't think you're going to have any problems with I mean, if anything, I'm too enthusiastic, Claudia.
Wait, let me
See,
go get that bio data. Let me go back to
yeah,
the.
come on, let's come. I mean, where's the mincemeat? So far I'm
Okay,
very
wait a minute.
disappointed.
Wait. All right, so we said God expresses himself through Ken in a unique way where people who sit with men in transmission, we just spent 15
Transmission. We already got
minutes
carried away with
talking
something
about
on that word.
all right, and you already all know that they have a profoundly different experience of the divine in their body. Okay, now we did take a winding road to get here. Now comes something specific, and we will make him tell us more about it if we want. Let's see. All right,
Let's
he
see.
has worked, for example, he has worked with a number of advanced former students of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, if I'm saying that correctly, who each said, unprompted, following their initial session with him, that was the deepest spiritual experience of my life. Hats off to you, Ken. Now you're going to explain to us who is Maharishi Mahesh Yogi.
Well, he was the man who founded transcendental meditation, right? So
Okay.
he was a very well-known spiritual teacher, and I didn't study with Maharishi. And what's maybe I can explain this comment, even the origin of this. I was sitting with a
Oh.
friend and a colleague of mine.
Mhm.
We did an event together in Santa Fe, New Mexico,
Uh-huh.
and we went out to get ice cream afterwards, and
Oh,
uh,
thank God for that detail. That's
he
important. Love it.
I'm telling you, it is important because of the
Oh,
person that took me out.
I'm
Anyone
sure.
who knows Alan Davidson, you'll remember he's not in the body anymore, but this will make you giggle if you know Alan.
Okay. Poor.
So we were sitting, he said, I'm going to take this boy out for ice cream. So we went out for ice cream, and we were sitting there in a Baskin Robbins in the most innocuous place. And we started having this profound spiritual conversation, which I think every conversation is spiritual. So
Good.
but Alan had a particular gift around sort of language and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And he started describing his gift in this terminology that just blew my mind. I don't remember exactly what he said. I wish I could.
He has a
And
gift, even, being able to mention he does definitely have a gift. Mm.
he had this beautiful gift. And I said to him, oh my God, I wish I could describe my work in that way. And he looked at me and he gave me maybe some of the best advice, just single line advice.
Tell us.
It's such good advice.
Tell us.
He said, pay attention to what people are saying to you.
Yes.
Because what they're telling you, they're giving you the answer to the question that you're asking right now, Ken. And in that moment, I started thinking back, how I had worked with it wasn't something I sought out, at least not consciously, but I ended up being referred to a bunch of people who some of them had been in flying rooms with Maharishi. They used to meditate
wait. You mean flying rooms? You have to explain this. Not everyone will understand.
Yeah. Well, apparently Maharishi would meditate and they would levitate in these rooms, and they had padded walls, and they would levitate and fly into the walls while they were meditating. So
wow,
that's what I'm told. Right?
Okay.
So I wasn't there, didn't see it, didn't participate.
Thank you so much for that story, and that gives us an idea of I don't want to say power, because I don't like to use the word power in these contexts, but the significance, the relevance, the light of that experience. Now, Ken tells me that, and this is odd for me, okay, Ken helps elite athletes, high-performing teams, and spiritual messengers unlock and express. This is what I don't get. He helps them unlock, okay, comma, there's a comma there, and express They're sustaining deep flow states. There must be another comma here. This 4 words in a row is it's confusing, so you're going to have to talk about the unlock and express. First of all, why only athletes and high-performing teams and spiritual? Why only those 3? Did you choose? Wait. And then why? Yeah. And why unlock and express their divine power? Okay. On the playing field. All right. They're all on the play, spiritual members too. They're on the playing field. Okay, but that's all right. You don't have the gift of language that other person who knows how to express himself have. And the world. Now, he writes something. So let me finish the little bit of, question marks here over everything. And then I'll give you all the time in the world to respond. Now he tells me that his work helps individuals and teams. This is another piece of the puzzle here. Open, deep, sustaining flow states so they can expand their experience of what? Their experience of the zone, in inverted commas, professionally and personally. Now I'm thinking, Mama, he just threw that word spiritual on top of all this. And now they're athletes and all of a sudden they're on the playing field and they're in the zone. Okay, now this is minestrone. This is like a fruit salad, What are you talking about, Mr. Ken W. Stone? You've confused my brain.
Well, think about it this way, Claudia.
Okay.
So in my world, you're a spiritual messenger. I think everyone is, by the way. Yeah. And to me, a spiritual messenger is somebody who is consciously aware of the manner in which divine presence, or the role divine presence plays in their interactions with others in the natural world.
Okay.
So, in my journey as a spiritual messenger, yes, I work with people who are just waking up spiritually, who have no awareness. Maybe they're having an awakening in a resonance experiment or something like that. And I work with people through sort of all phases of their spiritual development. And I do that through, virtual retreats, and I do transmissions weekly and classes and all sorts of different things. Right. And in my private practice, I have over time, and it's not that it's interesting that I can't remember exactly how you made reference to it, but people are trying to figure out what their niche is and all of this. This is not my journey at all. In fact, I took a class from some heart-centered entrepreneurial expert to try to figure out what my niche should be. And I felt so relieved when I figured out what my niche was. And then I went and did it. I developed a website associated with the niche. And do you know what? There were absolute crickets. No one responded to it at all. And then I said,
I'm still trying to figure out what crickets is.
Silence. Nothing's there, silence. Right? It's empty. Yeah. All you can hear is just the crickets. Yeah. So then I said, to heck with this. I'm just going to do what I feel called to do. I'm going to follow that inner call I feel like it's divinity calling me, but whatever. Right. And so I started doing that.
Wait a minute. Before you go on, I want to tell everybody that he is not speaking, and if you will allow me to say this about you, Ken.
Please.
He's not speaking from a position of privilege. He forgot to tell us that the decision that you made, Ken, does cost you a great deal in terms of change. And that has a very big price at times.
Indeed.
You go back.
Yeah. I guess that is important to say, isn't it?
Sure.
What a beautiful witness you are.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
You are sweet.
You are sweet, but I'm going to turn you into mincemeat shortly.
I ain't finished. I gotta come back. Let me open this file again. Come on, you're tricking me.
No, I'm not trying. I'm not. I'm just trying to have fun with you. So okay, so that decision for me was a place of total freedom. And the
Mm-hmm.
freedom there was I could care less how this lands. This isn't a marketing effort. This
Yeah.
is, I'm not trying to fit into anyone else's ideas. I could care less what the world thinks I should do or what any particular person thinks I should do. I'm going to do as I'm called. I'm going to follow that lead, and that's going to take me wherever it takes me. And there were, I'm sure, as you know from your own experience and from having worked with many people in this process, I mean, there are many different layers of that, right? And there's sort
Mm-hmm.
of an ultimate surrender process, and I mean, I've gone through all of that. But the point that I'm trying to make is that the people that I have ended up working with in my private practice
Came
have
to you.
not been a function of my,
Mm-hmm. Marketing
some idea
strategies.
that I had.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, I want to go find those people and figure out how to get them into my practice. They just showed up in my
They showed
practice. They
up.
were referred in.
Yeah.
And in sort of the same way that this gift started expressing through me, from my perspective, in a very spontaneous way. And so when you're asking me, what are these, like, I'm just, everything that I mean, some language, I feel it's not that I've developed it because they're words that are used in other contexts, but
Mm-hmm.
the way that I utilize language has a very particular
Oh,
meaning to me.
yes.
And
Yes.
so in this case, I'm trying to substitute words that have meaning for some people
Yes.
as a way of trying to talk about something that's very, very difficult for me, at least, to
Yes.
succinctly make
I
reference
know,
to.
but let me stop you just a moment
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
very, very difficult is his work helps individuals, and we know that, and his work helps teams, and we got that. But he helps them to open sustaining deep flow states.
Yeah. Yeah.
Che sta
Yeah. What
dicendo
is that?
questo qui? You know?
I wish I understood what you just said, but I'm very impressed. You're speaking Italian. It's beautiful. Um,
He's
it's
what
very
is it?
exciting.
I mean, he's
My
trying to.
ability to
It's like
speak fake Italian is not matched by your
no,
ability to speak real Italian.
you're
Um,
throwing smoke in our eyes, and we
I'm not trying
are.
to.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not.
This is. But what does it mean? Those flow
Yeah.
states? Maybe I don't know
Okay.
that
So
word.
yeah, yeah. So, but you know it from an experience standpoint.
Uh
Okay.
huh.
So, what? Forget about.
Very
Let's
good
forget about
answer.
flow states for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's just think about presence.
Uh huh.
So, when you're having an experience of embodied presence,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, what I'm talking about is in the body presence, not an
Yeah.
idea, not even a
Mm-hmm.
feeling, a being state that has not originated from a thinking process. You know what
Right.
I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
Sure.
Okay. That is a sustaining state. And it's
Okay.
not sustaining because
Mm.
I am causing it or you are causing it. It is
Okay.
originating by the divine. The
Right.
divine is
Okay.
expressing that. Does that make sense?
Okay. I get it.
Yeah.
But then below. All right. You. Yeah. You tricked me into understanding. Okay. I get it.
I'm
But
not
I
trying to
still.
trick you though. I mean, I know you're just having fun with me, but I'm
No.
really not
No.
trying to blow smoke or trick.
Okay.
For me, the a flow state is where, I mean, think of it this way. You stand in the middle of a river, and depending on in which state of consciousness you're in, the
Yeah.
river is about to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
You can direct the river to do the things you want it to do.
Okay.
You are surrendered to the river. That is, you
Yeah.
are in flow with the river,
Yeah.
or you are one with the river.
Okay. I'm starting to get it. we've been laughing again. He said, are you going to put this on video? Because if people look at me, first I had one ear headphones, and then I didn't have any. Now I have a different one. Yep. Like he's a unique guy.
Part of the divine mystery here is that that I boom, boom, boom. In addition to deep flow states, headphones change. Okay, so let's back to your question about
wait.
What is this deep flow
This
state?
flow
right?
state. I think I got that.
You get it. Okay.
But there's an underlying the sports metaphor comes up, and being in the zone professionally. Being in the zone, I think it's one of those catchwords that everybody thinks they know, but then you talk to somebody that's not from the United States. What are they talking about? But I understand when you're at a professional high, they can expand their experience of that high.
Yeah, I think that's one way to say it, and maybe
and personally.
Yeah. And so another way of saying this is that, and I would say this is something that is a big part of my private practice.
Yeah,
is people get to a certain point in consciousness in their development, and maybe they're having the experiences they wanted to have. Things are unfolding the way they want them to, but they're not fulfilled. They're not having an experience of being fulfilled. And the solution, at least from my perspective, is not to dial in further into the thinking process or to the feeling process or to the visualization or any of the things that maybe took that person to that point. It's to move into a being state.
It's difficult.
It is. It's profoundly difficult. And it's not stuff that you flip a switch with. But something happens when I work with people in transmission. There's something that's happening experientially in that dynamic.
Okay.
And it's not like often when I do session work with people one-on-one, it's entirely in silence.
Yeah.
So we're not even communicating anything with words. The work is taking place at a much deeper level. And you're right, it is difficult. It's not something that happens over the course of a couple of weeks or months.
It's interesting because as you were talking, it made me think of an interaction that I had with a client. And people come to me, all of them, to create because I'm a psychic medium, to talk with their loved ones. And it's very difficult because the loved ones really want to continue talking. They need to speak to them, and it's frustrating for me, but this is an interesting idea to create events where you start to get people start to have the feeling and the emotions of what it is to hear things and to see things and visualize. Many people don't even know how to visualize. They really don't. And I just took for granted that everybody knew how to visualize. I was corrected by a colleague saying, not everyone has the capacity to imagine things,
Right.
And there are, what's interesting, I'm just thinking of it now from something that I did with my clients was we started by visualizing a shape and then change the color right away. And then you finally get their awareness, and it only takes very little to get the attention.
Right.
But I ask you now a difficult question, Ken. People who have the capacity to move other individuals in the same way and to feel joy, to actually feel joy is, and I don't want to again use the word powerful, because I have found there are certain cultures in the world who put much stock in their gods and living people like you and me, um, and they look to them for such, well, they look for them to have the responsibility.
Right.
They're
Right.
not willing to take
Right.
responsibility for their
Right.
own awakening.
Right. Right.
And it's hard because it seems like I'm castigating, somebody by speaking like this,
No, no,
because
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
it starts with the idea, Ken, like you and like me, but for me it happened when I was very, very young.
Yeah.
Things happened. I would see
Right.
things people didn't know, no one else saw. I would see
Right.
spirits walking. I would see
Right.
spirits fornicating. It looked like,
Right. Right.
on the ceilings. And that's why
Right.
a sexual experience is a very spiritual, experience in
Sure.
my experience. And
Sure.
it's quite difficult, especially when you span the international border
Right.
and come into contact with a culture who has very firm beliefs in rooted in a system which is an institutionalized religion.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Extremely difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
um but I ask myself, well, who am I to say, you know, if they live a fulfilled life and if they live in joy, then that is absolutely working for them, you
Yeah.
know.
Beautiful.
and
Beautiful.
and it's quite, I we've known, I mean, I'm sure you are old enough to remember these I guess, what do they call them, a serpent oil, on the, they get up on a soapbox, and they're oil sellers, oiler slickers, what do
S-
they call them?
Snake oil sales.
Snake oil. Snake oil, yeah. And
Yeah.
there are a lot of those in the
Yeah.
religious world, in the
Yeah. Yeah.
spiritual world.
Yeah.
And it is power. They
Yeah.
have the
Yeah.
ability to sway people's belief, and that
Yeah.
is very dangerous, very,
I
very
agree
dangerous.
entirely. I agree.
Yeah.
And you might imagine that I might resist something like that, but I really agree with you, and I think that there is, I mean, I the way I perceive it is that in certain developmental stages in consciousness, and I sort of perceive that there are four primary stages, but
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
however anyone perceives it,
Right.
in
Sure.
certain developmental stages, there is a tendency to want to give power away to somebody
Yeah.
who can, right?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
has the insight, the
Right.
awareness, the answer.
Sure.
Well, one of the things that, I mean, in addition to regularly, I mean, I think there are a couple of ways to sort of undo that,
Uh-huh.
from my perspective, say in the context of my work. One of the
Okay.
things that I think is essential, that I feel called
Mhm.
to for sure, is a level of vulnerability, of authenticity, of humility, and of embodiment that
Mhm.
is a counteract to that.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's
Absolutely.
I don't stand in that space to counteract, but to be who I really am. That's
Yeah.
my goal. And who I
This is,
really am is
people don't
just a
know. They don't know.
right,
Many
right.
people
They
just
don't
don't know
right.
who they are.
That's right. That's right. And but I am discovering who I am, and
Yes.
I'm doing that in a way that is maybe more public and more
Yeah. Okay. I
um
see what you're
just,
saying.
you
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
I
So
see.
so I
Sure.
when I say to somebody, "Listen, I perceive divinity in this particular way,"
Yeah.
or I'm having an experience, in the same breath I'm saying to them, listen, I believe,
Yeah.
I have the experience that divinity does something through me, but what that means to you is something that only you can assign meaning to.
Obviously.
And yeah, yeah. And so, and then you discover through your own intimate
Yeah.
experience with divinity what
Hmm.
divinity is calling you towards and
Yeah.
what that
The
means to you.
idea,
What,
the
yep,
key word there is intimate.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
it is very, very intimate. Because
yeah,
then, there still is a tendency, I have to say, and it makes me laugh, that people just divide the physical from the mental and from the emotional. And so, I'll just have, it's a friend with benefits, or, oh my God.
Right. As if these things could be separated.
Yeah. As if they could be separated. And it makes me laugh. And I think, oh my God, where did they learn their language,
Right.
But it's I'm very pleased that I didn't have to make mincemeat. Did that come out right? Mincemeat of you. You did it yourself. But this is such jolly good fun. It was really, really good. I liked talking to you so much, immensely, Ken. But you surely must have in your box of tricks the plans for a book.
I don't just have plans for a book. I have a book.
Where is it? You didn't tell me.
And it's it's at the beginning of the bio, but we went in such granular detail through the bio. We got distracted with other exciting things.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I did say it.
No,
I didn't get to the end of the sentence.
It's not published yet. And what I will tell you is that it's the first, I'm sure, of many books.
Good for you.
It's a book that is connected to a class that I've taught. And the name of the class is Igniting Resonance. Okay. And
but the book is
when I first
Renaissance.
Resonance. The book is Resonance, the Path of Spiritual Mastery. And and that book is really a wonderful companion to the class, but also a deeper exploration. And I will tell you, I'm in the place in the writing process of refinement. The book was ready to be published.
The pain.
Well, for me,
it's fun. It's fun. It's a very spiritual experience.
It's what I'm doing is I'm in the process of integrating my.
I thought you were going to say
from the book.
In the process of paying someone to do it for me.
No. Nobody could write the book except for me. I am the embodied transmission. So
nobody would want.
Nobody would want to. I'm the only person who could get this excited about these topics and explore at this depth. Anyway, it should be coming soon. Yeah, there's a book.
Oh, wait a minute now. So it doesn't have a material form yet, does it?
Well, it depends on what you mean. I mean, there are many copies of it. I can print it out on the printer, and then it has a material form. But in terms of a published book,
okay, I get it. So
has it been published
let me
yet?
ask
No,
you.
Not yet. Yeah.
You remember before we started this podcast how I told you I was here against my will, and we had a good laugh. And I told you I was listening to an audiobook. Yeah. My question. Do you think you'll consider the audiobook of your written version?
I won't just consider it. I guarantee you I'm going to do it. I'm
okay,
absolutely
and you
going to do it.
You will be doing the narration.
I will read it. Only I could read it.
Yes. Yes, that's I agree.
For sure.
Yes, just like Prince Harry.
Yeah. That seems like a bridge too far here, Claudia. I'm not at all like Prince Harry. And I don't mean to diminish Prince Harry. I'm just saying I'm not a prince. But yes, I will be
you're
reading.
You're still not awakened enough. Further down the line, you'll be a prince pretty soon.
Listen, a prince of peace, perhaps. But if I'm a prince of peace, then maybe we are all princes of peace and love, and maybe that's what you're saying.
Oh boy, you are really good. You do put a period after a good sentence. All right, now I will indicate, of course, his YouTube channel, which is called the Soul Archaeologist, and it also is the Facebook. I see. I screwed up here. Wait a minute. There's no spaces, and so I ruined this presentation for you. How awful! How awful!
It's all my fault.
I know it's your fault. Just like in Tango, the men always make the mistake.
I know it's your fault, but it sure is gracious of you to own it. Oh my goodness, this is so phenomenal.
You're so funny because you make me think that you've heard this for the first time. You know, it's not part of your programs. All right, so we have the Soul Archaeologist, Ken W. Stone, the Soul Archaeologist. That's the YouTube channel.
That's the YouTube channel.
We gotta go there. I'm gonna go there right away. Facebook,
you go there right away.
Yeah. Ken Stone, spiritual teacher. And then his website, kenwstone.com. And he has a free class, just how he described it to us in detail. And you want to be with this man in transition. What do you think? Can we end on that note?
It's a great note to end on. I would be honored to be in transmission with anyone who feels called to participate.
Transition. I said transition. It's transmission.
It is a transition too. Transmission is
right.
a transition state.
You're right.
Claudia,
You're
thank
right.
you. Thank
Okay,
you
wait a minute. No, we have to talk to you soon when the book is out.
Okay.
We'll have time
I'd
to
love
read it, and then
maybe some mincemeat. I mean, maybe then.
Yeah. Yes, after the book comes out. I'm really good with the red pen. I got new red ink today at my favorite pen store.
Oh, good. I'll get you a copy
fountain
of the
pen.
manuscript.
I got the fountain pen. I love fountain pens. Goodbye, Ken. Thank you so much for these lovely time. It was a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.